My LDL levels are sky high, and this is why I'm not concerned. So my doctor looked at my LDL levels and concluded, your LDL levels are really high, this is really unhealthy, you might have cardiac arrest because of this, so you need to lower your blood cholesterol with statins. So of course, I'm not going to follow this advice because he's not aware that I'm on the carnivore diet and he's not aware that this is okay, this is completely healthy. So for you to understand why high LDL levels isn't bad, I need to explain to you how LDL works. So there's 5 forms of cholesterol. Chylomicron, which is the biggest, which is immediately formed after eating. Then VLDL, IDL, LDL, and finally HDL, which is often called the good cholesterol. LDL is often vilified as the bad cholesterol, but as I'm going to teach you, this is completely false. High levels of LDL does not lead to atherosclerosis. When cholesterol is transported around the body, it starts as VLDL, which is very low density lipoprotein. Now, as this VLDL cholesterol releases its cargo and delivers it to the tissues around the body through the circulation, it deflates like a balloon, and then it becomes IDL, which then becomes LDL. And then when it finishes its journey, delivering all its cargo around the whole body, finally it returns back to the liver. So as long as your liver can reabsorb the LDL, there are no problems. So why is it that there is this false link of atherosclerosis with high levels of LDL? Well, let me tell you. If LDL is healthy and being reabsorbed by the liver, there's no problems. But there is a case where LDL can be damaged. As Dr. Paul Mason says, if LDL hangs out with the wrong crowd. Now, who is this wrong crowd? This, my friends, is sugar. It's glucose. If you have high levels of glucose in your blood, then that LDL inside your body is damaged. It's oxidized. It undergoes glucosis. So when LDL, now oxidized, finishes delivering its cargo all around the body and returns to the liver doesn't recognize it anymore. The LDL receptors don't have an affinity to this oxidized LDL, and so it doesn't reabsorb it. So what happens to it? It just stays in the circulation. So it's staying in the circulation now because of the glucose, because of glucosis, because of the oxidized LDL. It can't be reabsorbed, so now it's just floating in the body because of the sugar, not because of the fat. So what happens now to this LDL particle that's oxidized, that's floating around your circulation? It stays in the circulation and it accumulates. So there's this one cell layer lining of the blood vessels called an endothelium. This can become porous or leaky, and the oxidized LDL can actually penetrate that porous, leaky membrane, of which on the other side of this blood vessel is macrophages. These macrophages have these scavenger receptors which have a high affinity to these oxidized LDL particles.
It's quite convenient. They have a very strong affinity for it. So what they do, the LDL particle binds with the scavenger receptor and it engulfs it, a little bit like a Pac-Man. And then eventually these macrophages end up so full of LDL that we call them foam cells. And here you can see a foam cell with all the lipid droplets inside. And this is the way in which damaged LDL ends up lining the inside of our blood vessels. And this is the end result. That's a significant narrowing. And that is caused by LDL that's been damaged by sugar.
Now these foam cells can become something called an atheroma. And this starts to build up on the side of the arteries. And this is how atherosclerosis starts to form. So as I've explained, I can have extremely high levels of cholesterol and be completely fine because it's not the problem of LDL, it's the problem of oxidized LDL, which can only become oxidized through glucosis first by sugar. So if I'm having virtually no sugar in my diet, then there is no reason for me to be concerned whatsoever. But how do you measure your blood results and determine if you're healthy? Well, as Dr. Paul Mason talks about, and many carnivore doctors, what you have to do is look at your triglyceride levels and your HDL levels. So if your triglyceride levels are below 0.5 millimole per liter and your HDL levels are above 2 millimole per liter and the ratio of triglycerides to HDL is below 1, then you are healthy. You have nothing to worry about, smooth sailing. And that is exactly what my blood looks like. So my triglyceride levels are below 0.5, my HDL levels are above 2, and the ratio of triglycerides to HDL are below 1. So I am not concerned. I'm healthy. I'm in the prime of my life. My eczema is cured. My skin looks heavenly. I'm fit and healthy, and there's nothing to worry about. Now here you can see a systematic review of 19 prospective studies on the relationship between mortality and LDL levels. Of 16 of these 19 prospective studies, the researchers proved an inverse relationship between high LDL levels and mortality. That is, the more LDL you have in your body that's not oxidized, the more likely you are to survive.